let's look at some additional consonant rules. K is my symbol for consonant because there is no K in the Gaelic alphabet, and this is a broad consonant. So, when you have a broad consonant, if you want, if it's at the beginning or the middle of a word, you can put a tiny little w sound right there. Not a big broad wa, but a tiny little w sound right there. As an example, here's the standard name for the Irish language. Now, AE, as you know from our diphthongs page, is A. So you can pronounce this as Gaelga, or if you want, you can put a tiny little W there, Gaelga. Not a big Gaelga, but a tiny little Gaelga. So that's very common. You'll hear that a lot with broad consonants. Now, another thing that goes on is when you have either an ADH followed by a consonant or an AGH followed by a consonant, you might say to yourself, okay, I'm going to gargle the broad DH and the broad GH and then add the consonant, like aghK plus the consonant. But instead, the dialects instead, in the standard, well, there's really no standard pronunciation in Irish because we have 3 major dialects and over 1.8 million people in Ireland who have some level of Irish, and each one of them sounds differently, unless they're Elvis impersonators. So, but anyway, the solution is, what goes on with this is I plus the consonant. So if that's a B, I. If it's a C, aghK. If it's a D, I. And that's a broad D because it's going to be broad, I instead of I'd. And if it's an IF, it's going to be, if it's an F, IF. If it's a G, aghG. If it's an L, I'll. If it's an M, I'm. If it's an N, ein. If it's an R, ire. If it's an S, ice. If it's a T, ite. Holding on to the T again, ite, because it's a broad T, not a released T, because to be a released T would have to be slender. So that's what goes on with that. And an example of that is this word for the common cold. We have the I, AGH here, plus the D. So instead of slagadon, instead it's slide-on. Slide-on. That's the common cold. And here's a very famous Irish name. It originally means philosopher way back in the old Irish period. That's an ADH or AD Bulta G. So it's the ADH combination using the Gaelic alphabet. That's the Gaelic G, and that's the De Bulta or DH. So this is taig. This is taig. So if you've heard Irish people referred to as taigs, that's because this name was such a popular name and is still used, still very popular, and it's often translated into English as Timothy, but which has a totally different biblical root, or New Testament root, but in Irish it's taig. Okay, and then we have IDH and IGH, and good. So IDH and IGH, this is E. It's from the Gaelic point of view, it's like an I and a Y, which are so similar, so close together, they're like two I's, so that's an E, a long I. Two I's would be a long I. And if the word continues on, you could get a Y glide right here if you want, because it's a slender consonant. So E. An example of that is my own last name in Irish. Where'd that go? Ah, there it is. So here we have the spelling in the Gaelic alphabet. There's the Gay Bulta or IGH. So aghK. Now stress is on the first syllable, so Cali, and then O here, grandson, and that I means of, so grandson of Cailleach. That's a warrior name. It means strife, conflict. So grandson of conflict, grandson of strife. It's not anything I aspire to, but that's what it means. So those are some additional consonant rules. Alrighty, on to the next one.